Hello all, this is Sai Kripa here and I'll be taking today's study circle. I'll be dealing with the topic audit of different types of entities applicable for CA Intermediate new syllabus. For those who are writing exams in the upcoming attempts, I hope this video will definitely help them for their preparations. Let's go into the video. So my topic is audit of different types of entities. I have referred ICAI study material and also points from CA Surabhi Bansal auditing and assurance reference material. I hope my presentation will be useful for you students to prepare for your exams for May attempt and also for the upcoming attempts. The topics I'll be covering in this presentation are government audit, audit of local bodies, audit of non-governmental organizations, audit of sole trader, audit of firm, audit of charitable institution, audit of educational institutions, audit of hospitals, audit of club, audit of cinema, audit of hire purchase and leasing companies, audit of hotels, audit of cooperative society, and a brief on audit report in respect of different entities. So let's go to the main topics. So the first topic is government audit. The scope developed in tune with the political, social and economic development of the countries. So the government auditing has been evolved over the years by the influence of political, social and economic development of countries. It responds to the needs of the administration, ensures accountability and functioning as an aid to administration in respect of public revenue and public expenditure. So the two main pillars of government auditing are public revenue and public expenditure. It is a mechanism or process of public accounting of government funds. So the government fund includes public revenue and public expenditure. So it is the process for public accounting of government funds known as government auditing. So the definition is given by the UN Handbook on Government Auditing and Developing Countries. The definition is very big. First I am going to read out the full definition and then explain it part by part. So the definition is like this. Government auditing is the objective, systematic, professional and independent examination of financial, administrative and other operations of a public entity made subsequently to their execution for the purpose of evaluating and verifying them, presenting a report containing explanatory comments on audit findings, together with conclusions and recommendations for future actions by the responsible officials, and in case of examination of financial statements, expressing the appropriate professional opinion regarding the fairness of the presentation. So it means that the government object is the auditing is the objective, systematic, professional and independent examination. Okay, so objective of government auditing is to ensure the accountability and functioning of public revenue and public expenditure. It is done in a systematic manner, in a professional manner, and we know that from many times when we are studying auditing, we have came across these two words called independent examination. Auditing itself says that it is an independent examination of the financial statements done by the auditor who expresses the true and fair view of the financial statements. So the auditor has the right or independent right to do the examination of the financial statements. Okay, so let's continue. Of financial, administrative and other operations of public entity. So government entity is also known as public entity. Their financial, administrative and other operations are being examined, made subsequently to their execution for the purpose of evaluating and verifying them. So these things are evaluated and verified by the auditor, and he presents a report which contains explanatory comments on audit findings. Whatever he finds, those things will be reported with explanatory comments along with the conclusions and recommendations for the future actions. So the auditor also includes the conclusions and recommendations for the future actions by the responsible officials, yeah, auditors. And in case of examination of financial statements, he will be presenting the true and fair views of the financial statements. He will be expressing professional opinion. So that's it, the definition of government audit. The government entities includes government companies, government corporations, government departments, which includes both central government and state government. The government company is that company which holds more than 51% of the shares jointly or severally by the central government or the state government. It comprises of ministries of health, agriculture, defense, finance, corporate affairs, etc. Independent statutory authority of the comptroller and auditor general. So let's see who is comptroller and auditor general. Comptroller and Auditor General of India is the apex authority responsible for the external and internal audits of the expenses of the central and state government. So he will be responsible for the external and internal audits of the central government as well as the state governments, popularly known as C&AG of India. Okay, so now let's see the provisions of appointment of C&AG. The C&AG is appointed by the President of India. C&AG is appointed by the President of India. Let's see the provision of removal or resignation of C&AG. C&AG can be removed only on the two bases, on the grounds of misbehavior or incapacity, or when each house of the parliament decides by a majority of at least two-thirds of members present and voting. Only these two situations can be the reasons for the removal of C&AG, or he can resign any time through a resignation letter addressed to the President of India. That is also possible. So now let's go to the next topic, duties of C&AG. First one, compile and submit accounts. The C&AG shall compile accounts of the union, state or union territory and submit those accounts to the president, governor or administration respectively. Next, to audit receipts and expenditure. He shall audit all receipts and expenditure of any body which has been substantially financed from consolidated funds of India or state or union territory. The substantially financed from consolidated fund, it includes if any amount of grants or loans in 1 year is greater than rupees 25 lakhs and 75% of the total expenditure of that body or authority. That includes in finance from consolidated funds. Next one, to audit grants and loans. The C&AG shall audit specific purpose loans or grants given to anybody other than a foreign state or international organization out of this consolidated funds of India, state or union territory. So except the foreign state or international organization, for anybody else, the loan or grant given must be audited by the auditor. Next point, the audit receipts of union or state. He shall audit all receipts payable into the consolidated funds of India, state or union territory. To audit accounts of stores and stocks. Next one, to audit accounts of government companies and corporations. And it will be done as per the provisions of the Companies Act 1956 in relation to the government company. Next, to audit and report. Few items. They are all those expenditures from the consolidated funds of India, state or union territories, all the transactions of the union, state relating to the contingency funds and public accounts. All trading, manufacturing, P&L and balance sheet and other subsidiary accounts kept in any department of union or state. Next one is the last one, submission of accounts. CNAG must submit all his accounts which are reported relating to the accounts of the union or state to whom? To the president or the governor, who will subsequently lay them before the parliament or the state legislature. If it is for the president, he will lay down before the parliament, or if it is the governor of respective states, he will be laying down before state legislature. So these are the duties of CNAG. Next topic is audit of stores and inventories. Okay, so these are important topics which covers the different types of audit which is done in government companies or government entities. So the first point is auditors should ascertain whether internal controls over purchases, receipts and issue of stores are well designed and properly carried out during the year. So internal check over the purchase, receipt and issue of stores must be properly checked by the auditor. If there are any deficiencies in the control system, it must be properly reported by the auditor to the government. It should be given a notice to the government. Next, audit of purchase of stores is conducted in same manner as audit of expenditure. So the coming topics we'll be discussing the audit of expenditure. So likewise, the audit of purchase of stores shall also be conducted in the same manner. Next is the auditor must ensure on reasonable prices paid for the purchase of stores and inventories. Next is the auditor must specifically examine uneconomical purchases of stores and losses due to defective and inferior quality of goods. If there are any uneconomical purchases or any losses due to the defective or inferior quality of goods, it must be properly examined by the auditor. Next point is the auditor should examine the certificates of quality and quantity given by the experts. Next point, accounts of receipts, issues and balances are checked regarding accuracy, correctness and reasonableness of balances in stores. So these things have to be properly checked regarding what all accuracy, correctness and reasonableness of balances in stores. It must be checked by the auditor properly. Next is he should mention if there is any idle or excess stock left over in the company. Next is attend the physical verification of stock to ensure their existence, whether they are existing or not. Only by the physical verification by the auditor he can examine on these aspects. The last point is he must ensure that the valuation of stocks are properly done by the government entities. So these are the points related to the audit of stores and inventories. Next one is audit of receipts. There are only 4 points. Let's see. The auditor must see whether the revenues are correctly assessed. Next one. The auditor must look on to the points where the rules and regulations and procedures, if any, are there. The company has followed it or not. Next point is government companies are accounting in a proper or correct manner. That aspect should be noted by the auditor. This is the 4th point. The 3rd point is internal check for prompt detection must be done by the auditor to see if there are any irregularities or if there are some detections or some defectiveness or something like that in the company. So the internal check must be done properly. So these are the points relating to the audit of receipts of government entities. So the next topic is audit of expenditures. There are 5 points in this. We can see one by one. So the first one is audit against rules and orders. It is the duty of the auditor to ensure that all these expenditures of the government incurred conforms to the relevant provisions of the law and is in accordance with the financial rule and regulation framed by the competent authority. So the auditor must check that the rules and regulations are followed by the government entities as per stipulations by the competent authority. So the salary and wages rules and regulations are followed or not, that must be ensured by the auditor. And also the auditor must ensure that there is no rules that are unconstitutional in nature. Means there are no rules which are against the constitution. Everything must be abiding within the constitutional limits. So these are the areas where the auditor must check and ensure regarding to the audit against rules and orders. So the next one is audit sanctions. The auditor must ensure the expenditure are properly sanctioned. The expenditure, whether general or specific, that must be properly checked and see that whether they are sanctioned by the competent authority or not. The auditor should also have knowledge of sanctioned powers of various authorities and he should examine whether these are noted in prescribed register. And for petty expenditures, the signature of the competent authority on a bill can be regarded as a sanction. So these are the things related to audit sanctions. Next one is audit against provision of funds. The auditor must ensure that the funds are properly utilized and these does not exceed the appropriations earlier made. Yeah. So the next one is propriety audit. The propriety audit focuses on 5 points mainly. First one is prudence, second one is proper sanction, third one is general benefit, fourth one is no special benefit, fifth one is financial morality. So the prudence concept of propriety audit states that the expenditure should not be more than occasions demand. Like as an ordinary person, the government officials should also exercise the same vigilance of expenditure incurred from the public money as a person of ordinary prudence, and he should think like a common man only. This is the concept of prudence. Next one is proper sanction. As mentioned in the second point, audit sanctions, the same way, it is almost the same thing. Okay. So expenditure should be properly sanctioned by the competent authority. The same is explained in point number 2. So the properly sanctioned authorities' knowledge also should be there with the auditor. So this is about proper sanctioning. The next point is general benefit. I'll combine the point 3 and 4 as one single point. General benefit and no special benefit. It means that the expenditure should be incurred by the government for the benefit of the society as a whole. It must not concentrate on one specific or one single person or a particular person or a group of person. It should not be like that. It must be for a general benefit. The public money should not be used for the benefit of a particular person or a group of communities unless there are certain exceptions. The amount of expenditure involved is insignificant. A claim for amount could be enforced by the court of law. The expenditure is in pursuance to the recognized policy or customs. The amount of allowance which is granted to meet the expenditure of the particular type should be regulated such that allowance are not on the whole source of profit to the recipient. It must not be a fully profit to the recipient, but like it must be something like beneficial to that person if it is specially assigned to them. So these are the explanations of general benefit, no special benefit. And the last point is financial morality. It says that if there are any improper or avoidable expenditures that can be like identified properly through this proprietary audit, and this ensures a reasonably high standard of public financial morality when auditors look into wisdom, faithfulness, and economy of transactions. So these are the points relating to proprietary audit. Next, we come to fifth point, performance audit. There are three aspects of performance audit. They are efficiency, economy, and effectiveness. We'll see efficiency. Efficiency in this nature of query are various schemes, projects executed and their operations are conducted economically, and they are yielding results expected of them. What and all the standards are set, they are actually getting the expected results, and that means the efficiency of the entity. So the efficiency of the government entity is, or we can say the performance of the government entity is analyzed. Next one is economy. In this, whether the government acquire the financial or human or physical resources in an economic manner or not is being identified, and also whether they have sanctioning and spending authorities observed economy in spending. These things are also taken care of. The last point is effectiveness. Effectiveness means whether they have conducted programs, schemes, projects which are achieved the targets and all, and have target achieved in optimum manner. It must be achieved in optimum manner in a short span of time. That's known as effectiveness. So these are the performance criterion aspects measured by the auditor when he is auditing the government entities. So these are the points relating to audit of expenditures. So we come to the second type of audit, that is audit of local bodies. Municipality is included in this local body. So municipality can be defined as a unit of local self-government in an urban area. So local self-government ordinarily means the administration of a locality, a village or a town or a city or any other area smaller than a state. In that, the government in those areas are known as municipalities, and they are included in local bodies. So the main objectives of the local bodies auditing is to report on many factors like the fairness of content and presentation of financial statements, upon the strengths and weakness of system of financial control, on adherence to legal and or administrative requirements, reporting upon whether value is being fully received on money spent, and detection of errors, fraud, or misuse of resources. So these are the objectives of audit of local bodies. So there are 5 points in audit procedures. Let's see one by one. First one is preliminary points. The auditor should obtain the basic information about the constitution, functions, and financial status of the local body. So their overall of the details should be collected by the auditor. The basic main details. The next one is understand the financial administration. The auditor has to obtain sufficient knowledge about their budget and accounting system, and also to have a complete knowledge about the budget, which is an important tool for financial planning and control for urban local bodies. Next one is the auditor must vouch the incomes and expenditures of the local bodies. The various revenues or incomes, it may be in the form of property tax, collection from public places, grants, etc. And the expenditures will be in form of salaries and wages, allowances to employees, rent, printing and stationery, repairs, maintenance, etc. and everything should be vouched in the usual manner. Fourth point, verifications of assets and liabilities of local bodies. The assets will be of land, building, plant and machinery, vehicles, office equipments, furniture and fittings, etc. And the liabilities of government local bodies, which includes reserves, long-term and short-term loans, and unutilized grants are included in liabilities. So the assets and liabilities should be verified properly in a usual manner. And last, the auditor must prepare the audit report and express his own opinion about the financial statements of local bodies. And he also should communicate the comparisons between the budgeted figures and the actual figures to arrive at any variances, if any, and take corrective measures. So these are the audit procedures of local bodies. Next, we move on to audit of non-governmental organizations. Okay, it is also known as NPOs, non-profit organizations. Let's see what are they. NPO or NGO are those organizations which raise funds from the members, donors or contributors. They receive donations of time, energy and skills for achieving their social objective like imparting education, providing medical facilities, etc. So these type of NGOs will include religious organizations, voluntary health and welfare agencies, hospitals, old age homes, research foundations, etc. So the examples of NGOs are UNICEF, Child Relief and You, also known as CRY, etc. So this is the background of NGOs. So the legal forms of NGO are, they must be registered under Section 8 of Companies and incorporated under Companies Act 2013. The trust incorporated under Indian Trust Act 1882. Societies formed under Societies Registration Act 1860. Okay, so this is the legality of NGOs. Now let's see the pre-audit procedures to be followed by the auditor before conducting the main audit. First one is activities. The auditor must see what is the activity done by the NGO, the mission of the NGO, the area of operation and their work. Presently what they are doing. Okay. So the next one is legal framework. Apart from this legality that I have mentioned just previously, other than that, if any other enactments such as Income Tax Act, Foreign Contribution Regulations Act 1976, these are to be focused if they are required to. Next one is constitutional documents. The auditor has to review the memorandum of associations, articles of association, bylaws or trust deeds based on format in which NGOs are formed. Okay. So the next one is overall organizational requirements are to be checked and understood by the auditor regarding the funding agencies requirements, budgetary requirements, project guidelines, etc. And he must prepare his own conclusions based on all these findings of organizational requirements. Next one is decisions. The auditor must examine the minute books of the meeting and which will give an insight to impact the decisions taken on accounting records by the managing committee, board of directors or governing bodies of NGO. Okay. So the next is accounting system followed. The auditor must see the accounting system followed by the NGO, the methods, the internal check, internal controls and their applicability must be reviewed. The auditor must see the setting up materiality level for audit, risk assessment and related aspects. Next is audit procedure, in that he has to determine the duration of the audit work, the nature of the audit, the extent of the procedure, nature of reports and other communications must be made. The last one is he must review the other reports also, like the previous audit reports, he must review them also to get a better understanding of the NGO. So these are the points related to pre-audit procedures of NGOs. Let's see the audit procedures, auditing of receipts or incomes of NGOs. Okay. So first point is contribution and grants for projects and programs. The fee received for these programs must be properly checked by the auditor. Next is membership fee. The auditor must see the membership fee received and also have to cross check with the membership register. And then he have to reconcile between the amounts received as membership fee and yet to be received as membership fee. Next is subscriptions. He must examine the subscription register and the receipts issued to the subscribers. Next is interest and dividends. He must check onto the interest and dividends received and receivable with investments held during the year. The last one is receipts from fundraising programs. If there are any fundraising programs implemented by the NGOs, whether properly incomes are received or not have to be checked by the auditor. So these are the points relating to the audit of receipts or incomes of NGO. The next point is audit of expenses or payments of NGOs. Whether salaries and allowances are properly paid to the employees, general expenditures, capital expenditures are separately shown and accounted. Provident funds and ESI facilities are provided or not. Programs and project expenses. All these things, whether incurred or not, have to be checked by the auditor before um, arriving at a conclusion. Next one is auditing of assets and liabilities of NGOs. So if there are any property, the property title lead have to be checked by the auditor. Investment in bonds, shares, scrip, and they have to be verified with the investment register. If there are any fixed asset addition or deletion, it has to be properly accounted, and adequate rate of depreciation has been provided or not have to be checked by the auditor. The auditor must vouch the loan agreements and receipt counterfoil issued. Next one is verify the and tally with the books of accounts of cash in hand and bank balances, and also prepare a bank reconciliation statement. So these are the points related to audit of assets of NGOs. Let's see audit of liabilities of NGOs. The capital fund must be properly checked by the auditor. The proper reserves must be vouched by the auditor. Project or agency balances in this matching concept must be properly vouched. Vouch the disbursement and expenditure as per agreements with the donor. Earmarked funds must be verified. Loans, if there are any, have to be ascertained, and the borrowing power of NGO must be checked and ascertained by the auditor. So these are the points relating to audit of liabilities of NGOs. Fourth type of audit is audit of sole trader. Unless otherwise stipulated by the statutory authority, example 44AB audit, GST audit, etc., the accounts of sole proprietor need not be audited. So unless they are mentioning that the audit is required, normally the audit of sole trader is not required. Okay, then the scope and objective of audit and conditions subject to which audit to be conducted should be determined by sole proprietor himself. If there is any necessity of conducting an audit, then sole proprietor himself must determine how the audit should be conducted. So the audit procedure is as follows. The auditing acts as a moral check on the parts of employees, the internal control check, and it should provide the improvement suggestions. The audit secure insurance compensations. The audit completes the most accurate by the income tax department, and it also enables faster completion of assessment. The audit Also helps in various negotiations. Government subsidy and assistance may require audited financial statements, and this, after doing the audit, it will be helpful to avail grant and subsidy. The audited books of accounts are mostly preferred by the insurance company, and for that sake also it is very necessary, and it becomes a help in hand for the sole trader also for taking some insurance from the insurance companies. So these are the audit procedures followed by the sole trader.
So next we are going to deal with audit of firms. Unless otherwise stipulated by statutory authority, example 44AB audit, GST audit, the accounts of partnership firm need not be audited. It means that if any stipulation is given by the statutory authority, only then the audit of partnership firm is compulsory. In other cases where there is no stipulation by the statutory authority, the partnership audit is not required. So there are some pre-audit procedures that have to be followed by the auditor before undertaking an audit if any statutory authority stipulation is being given to the firm. So that time the auditor must obtain few details or some information from the firm. They are name and style of business, the name of the partnership firm, and what kind of business the partnership firm is doing. Those details have to be obtained by the auditor. Duration of partnership, if any, capital contribution by the partners in the firm, periods of closing of books of accounts, profit and loss sharing ratios between the partners, borrowing power and capacity, interest on loan and interest on drawings by the partner. So the rate has to be obtained. Salary payable to partners. So these are the details that the auditor has to obtain before starting an audit. So the audit procedure of the partnership firm is as follows. First one is confirming the letter of appointment signed by a partner duly authorized clearly states the nature and scope of the audit. So when the audit is being carried out by the auditor has to see the letter of appointment of the partner. If the partner has signed properly and it is duly authorized by the partnership agreement between the partners and the firm. Next, studying the minutes book. The minutes book of the partnership firm, if they are maintaining it, has to be studied by the auditor. Next is verifying that business in which partnership is engaged is authorized by partnership agreement. It means that the partnership deed, the partnership agreement has to authorize the partnership firm to conduct certain types of business, and there are few business which are not to be carried out. So if the business is authorized by the partnership agreement, then it's okay. So the auditor has to check on that also. Examining whether books of accounts appear to be reasonable. So whether the books of accounts prepared by the partnership firm are reasonably true, accurate, and fair. Verifying generally that interest of no partner has suffered prejudiciously by an actively engaged partner. So in the partnership firm, there may be active partners, passive partners, and so on. So in partnership firm, all the partners have to be equally treated. There is no such superior partners and all in the firm. So the interest of the partner is not suffered. So that has to be verified by the auditor. Next is confirming that a provision for firm's tax payable by partnership has been made in the accounts at proper value. So provision for tax that has been made or not, that has to be checked by the auditor. Next is verifying that profits and losses have been divided among the partners in their agreed profit sharing ratio. So the pre-audit procedures that we just discussed before 2-3 minutes, it states that the auditor has to obtain certain information from the firm, in which this point is being included also. So that is the profit and loss ratio shared by the partner has to be obtained. So the partnership firm has to equally
Audit of LLP. The auditor should get definite instructions in writing as to the work to be performed by him from the LLP firm. Okay, and he must mention whether records of the firm appear to be correct and reliable, obtain necessary information and explanations, any restrictions was imposed upon him. So these things have to be mentioned by the auditor. The auditor should read the LLP agreement and note the following provisions. Okay, 11 provisions are there. Just like the partnership audit only, LLP audit also should be carried out, but slightly different manner. That's it. Let's see. Nature of the business of the LLP, amount of capital contributed by the each partner in the LLP, interest in respect of additional capital contributed in the year. If there are any additional capital contribution, the interest on capital must be properly noted. Next, duration of partnership, drawings allowed to the partners, salaries, commission, etc. payable to the partners, borrowing powers of LLP, rights and duties of partners, method of settlements of accounts between the partners at the time of admission, retirement, etc. Any loans advanced by the partners, profit sharing ratio. Okay, so almost these points are covered in main audit of partnership firm itself, but just a different slight difference is there in LLP audit. That's all. If partners maintain minute book, the auditor shall refer it for any resolution passed related to the accounts. He can also see to that. So that's it with the audit of partnership firm. Now we move on to audit of charitable institutions. We know that charitable institutions forms a part of NGO, but the audit should be undertaken in a separate different manner. Okay, so let's see what are the audits relating to receipts or incomes of charitable institutions. I have divided it into two parts, donations and grants in one part and others in other part. So the donations and grants are to be vouched by the auditor, whether it is received in cash or whether it is received in kind, he must note it. And whether the donations and grants are received for general purpose or specific purpose, that should be taken care of. Then if any copy of receipt is issued or not have to be checked by the auditor. Accounting entry for this donation and grants, periodic report, entry in the cash or passbook must be properly done or not. These are the points relating to donations and grants the auditor must look into while auditing the receipts and income or incomes of charitable institutions. Let's see the other receipts or incomes of charitable institutions. Income from investments, rent recognition, subscription details. All these things have to be separately checked by the auditor. That's all with the audit of incomes or receipts of the charitable institution. Now we go on to audit of payments or expenses of charitable institutions. Again, I have divided into two, expenses and tax. So the expenses of authorization are objects of as per the objects of the trust, whether they are properly sanctioned. These have to be looked by the auditor. Next, payment of staff salary, payment of any purchases of any stationery or materials if any, common expenses and ARP, that is analytical review procedures, have to be taken care of by the auditor. So these are the expense of charitable institution and auditor must see on to every points properly. And the tax expense payments, exemptions or payments as per the requirements. If there are any exemptions or the tax paid or payable by the charitable institution have to be properly examined by the auditor. Next is audit of assets of charitable institution. The auditor has to examine the accounting of all fixed asset and he must see that the ownership and existence of fixed asset by examining the records and conducting physical verification respectively. Okay, and the auditor must verify the calculation of depreciation for each fixed asset and he must obtain a written representation of existence, ownership and valuation of assets from the charitable institution directly. Okay, and the special point to be remembered in this assets of charitable institution is that point of investment. The auditor must check the authorization of purchase and sale of investments, and also he must physically check the investment certificate by himself. So these are the points relating to assets of charitable institutions. Next we move on to audit of liabilities of charitable institutions. The auditor must examine the capital fund of the charitable institution, and he must see the provision for claims against the charitable institution and maintain records. Okay, so these are the points relating to audit of charitable institution. So next we move on to audit of educational institution, which includes schools, college or university. Let's see the audit of receipts or incomes of educational institutions. I have divided it into 4 categories, that is fee from students, rent, income on investment, donation and grants. Okay. Next. So we'll see the first one, fee from students. The auditor has to properly check the admission fee received by the educational institution, whether it is demanded from everyone. The proper rates of the fee have to be prescribed by the educational institution and have been made available to the auditor. Whether there are any concession, if any, they have to be authorized. The copy of receipt of fee have to be properly maintained by the educational institution. Whether the entry has been made in the cash or passbook of the educational institution. Whether the educational institution received advance fee or late fee. Any hostel due and collect a proper collection of fee are on timely basis. These are the points to be noted by the auditor in respect of fee from students. Next we move on to rental incomes by the educational institution. Whether there is a proper agreement between the landlord and the tenant, whether the received copy is properly received from the tenant by the educational institution, whether the entry has been made in the books of accounts have to be properly checked by the auditor. Next is income on investment. Investment register have to be properly maintained by the educational institution. The auditor must reconcile the received investment and the with the investment register, and the entry in the proper accounts and the passbook also to be reconciled. Next is the last one of donation and grants. Okay, category donation and grants. Whether the donation is properly received, sanction letter is properly there, whether the donation is for general or specific use, the received copy must be demanded by the educational institution, whether the proper entry is made in the books of accounts. These are to be properly checked by the auditor. So these are the points relating to audit of receipts or incomes of educational institutions. So next we are going to deal with audit of payments or expenses of educational institutions. So I have divided it into 3 categories, for students, for staffs and common expenditure. Let's see. Expenses for students. The scholarship expenses, expenses on prizes and functions if any conducted by the educational institution, library and sports items. The purchases made for the books or for library and sports items for the sports activities of the school or college or any educational institutions. And for these things, proper entry is made in the books of accounts. All these things have to be checked by the auditor properly. Next is payments or expenses for staffs. The terms and conditions have to be adhered to. Then remunerations and deductions payments have to be properly made, and those things have to be properly, transaction should be properly entered in the bank statement, and proper entry into the account is also being made or not is to be checked by the auditor. The last one, common expenditure, is the electricity and water bill of the educational institution, maintenance of school and hostel facilities. Next, passbook and posting. These entries are to be posted in passbook also and in the books of accounts also. So this is the audit of expenses or payments of educational institution. So the next is audit of assets of educational institutions. The auditor must examine all the fixed assets are properly accounted for, verify their ownership and existence of fixed asset by the examine the records and conduct in physical verifications respectively, verify whether depreciation is properly calculated with respect to each class of fixed asset, obtain a written representation with respect to existence, ownership and valuation of assets. These points we have covered in the previous segment. So I'm just running through this. So the next one is liabilities of educational institution. Examine the corpus or capital fund of the educational institution. If any refundable admission fee, it has to be done and maintain the proper records also. So these are the things. These points are actually repetitive. Few are there in previous slides, few will be there in the next upcoming slides. So few things are quite repetitive, so I'm just reading it out. Okay, so these are the points relating to audit of assets of educational institution and audit of liabilities of educational institutions. So the next topic, eighth type of audit, is audit of hospitals. Okay, this is one very important questions that has been asked in many of the RTPs and MTPs, and quite I guess it has been come in the examination also. So this topic is a bit important compared to the other topics in audit of different types of entities. Okay, audit of hospitals. Let's see. So the audit of receipts or incomes of hospitals. I have divided it into three: from patients, from grant, from income on investments. From patients, bill raised to all, whether the bill is raised for every patient, whether the proper rates of the patient is being accounted for, calculations are bifurcated for various purposes, concessions are, if any, they must be authorized, their copy of receipt must be obtained by the auditor properly, cash or passbook entry must be properly made, and also in the books of accounts the entry is made or not. Those things have to be checked by the auditor. Next one is from grants. Sanction letter has to be obtained when receiving a grant. If it is for a specific purpose, that has to be mentioned in it. Obtain the management representation letter or written representation must be obtained for this grant, and also it must be segregated as capital or revenue in nature. Okay. The next one is income on investment. Proper investment register must be maintained and must be seeing on whether the investment is income is properly received from the investment or not, whether the entry in the passbook is there or in the entry is made in the proper accounts. These things have to be properly checked by the auditor. So these are the points relating to audit of receipts or incomes of hospitals. And the special points to be noted in audit of hospitals receipts and incomes are: register of patients to be maintained, collection of cash details have to be properly maintained and obtained by the auditor. If there are any legacies and donations, they must be properly capitalized. The auditor must reconcile the subscriptions received and yet to be received, and the authorization and sanctions of various loans and grants must be properly done. So these are the special points that must be kept in mind while auditing the receipts or incomes of hospitals. Next, we are going to deal with audit of payments or expenses of hospitals. I have divided it into three parts: for staffs, other expenses, and taxation. Let's see. For staffs, The terms and conditions that are applied for the staffs have to be checked by the auditor. Remuneration for the staffs and any deduction have to be clearly stated by the hospitals, and auditor must look into these aspects also, and whether these transactions are recorded in the bank statement and also in the books of accounts. These have to be thoroughly ensured by the auditor. Next is other expenses relating to authorization, purchase of high value medicines, abnormal expenses, ARP, that is analytical review procedures, and if any, the auditor has to obtain the management representation letter or written representation for these kind of expenses. Next is taxation. The calculation for the taxes and provision for tax have to be made by the hospital, and special attention should be given to the exemptions that are covered for the hospitals. So these are the points relating to the audit of payments or expenses of hospitals. The next topic is audit of assets of hospital and audit of liabilities of hospital. You can just go through these points. The points are being repeated, and also I have explained in the previous slides, that is an audit of educational institutions, audit of charitable institutions. So you can just go through these points as they are same. And point number 5 is an addition for this. Special attention to high value stock, internal control over issue of medicines. So as it is a hospital, so the auditor has to clearly have an internal control over the issue of medicines. It must not have an over issue of medicines by the hospitals, but in a reasonable manner. So those things have to be checked, and special attention must be given by the auditor in this aspect. So this point is an only addition to the repeated points of audit of assets of hospitals and audit of liabilities of hospitals. You can just go through. I'll give you 2 minutes. The next topic is audit of club. Here also, let's go to the topic audit of receipts or incomes of club. I have divided it into 3 parts: administration fee, subscriptions, service to members. So in administration fee, the members list must be obtained by the auditor. The cash books have to be properly checked about the administration fee are recorded or not. Copies of receipt of administration fee must be received by the auditor to check that, and also the accounting policy must be observed and proper accounting treatments are followed or not to be ensured. Next is subscriptions. In that, members list plus subscription details which are received and which are in arrears, they have to be reconciled by the auditor. Next, copy of receipts of subscriptions, and if any advance subscription is received, that also should be taken into consideration. Okay, so the next one is service to members. Rate criteria, bills raised by the club, cash collected by the club, cash book and entries, whether they are properly accounted or not. The auditor must look into these aspects. So these are the points relating to audit of receipts or incomes of club. Next point is audit of payments or expenses of club. Divided into 2: purchase expenses, administrative expenses. In purchases, sports item purchase or foodstuffs purchased must be, the transaction must be recorded properly. The bills for these purchases must be properly maintained and given to the auditor for auditing. Payments, the amount paid for these purchases must be properly transacted, and the entry in accounts must be properly done. So these things have to be checked by the auditor in a proper manner. Next is administrative expenses. The salary of the staffs, the common expenses, The ARP, analytical review procedures, must be properly observed by the auditor. That's it. So these are the points relating to audit of payments or expenses of a club. Next we go to audit of assets of the club. The auditor has to attend the physical verification of stock conducted by the management. Okay, whether to examine their existence. Next one is examine stock register. Properly the stock register has to be maintained and obtained by the auditor. Next is check valuation of stock, whether the proper valuation technique is used by the club, and that has to be observed and verified by the auditor. And the special points to be noted in this aspect is that the register of members, in that the auditor has to check the totals of various columns and tally them across. And next one, second point is examine the financial powers of the secretary, and if these have been exceeded, report specific case for confirmation by the managing committee. So the auditor's responsibility is to report to the managing committee about this exceeded powers of the secretary. So these are the points relating to assets of club and special points. Next, we go on to the 10th type of audit, that is audit of cinema. Okay, so let's see the audit of receipts and incomes of cinema. Okay, cinema or cinema hall, we can say. Okay, let's see. Divided into three parts: from shows, from advertisements, from restaurant incomes. Okay, so from the shows, you all know the tickets must be issued in a serial numbered or serially ordered, and that has to be properly recorded and maintained by the cinema hall. Then daily report of the cinema showcase and conducted must be maintained. The tax collected from the audience, okay, they have to be properly segregated. The fare of the cinema and the tax collected should be segregated separately. Next, if any advance booking, so we all know we can book in advance through Book My Show and all. Like now it is a modern world and everything is possible. Advance booking is all possible. So if there is any advance booking like that, they have to be properly recorded. And then if any internal control must be taken into consideration for the entry to hall, issue of tickets, if issue of free passes. We all know that complimentary passes are also being provided by the cinema hall or any from film directors or some film producers and all. So those things also should be properly maintained in order to have a proper internal control by the auditor. So these things have to be properly given to the auditor. Okay. So next is from advertisements. Okay. The advertisement agreement must be properly made. Proper calculation of the amount receiving from the advertisement must be shown to the auditor. Recognition in accounts. It must be properly recognized in the accounts. Collection in the cash book. The cash received from the advertisement must be properly maintained and transacted in the cash book. Okay. Next one is restaurant income. If the restaurant is there nearby the cinema hall, their agreement must be made in the proper manner. The collection of share, restaurant share must be properly accounted for. Entry in the books of accounts. Control over the foodstuff. If there are any old foodstuffs or something lying in the restaurant, you must be properly seen onto that and you have to record it. So these things are about audit of receipts or incomes of cinema hall. Next we are going to discuss on audit of payments and expenses of cinema or cinema hall. Okay. So divided into two, expenses and two distributors. Okay, expenses of cinema hall, bills, copies, all the payments must be properly recorded and the entries must be there in cash book and passbook, and the repairs and maintenance must be divided into or properly accounted as capital or revenue expenditures. So it must be properly maintained. and payments to the distributors. The agreement must be properly made. The payments must be properly done, and advances to them obtain MRL or WR, return representation or management representation letter must be properly obtained. So these are the points relating to audit of payments or expenses of cinema hall. And assets and liabilities audit, the points are almost same. I told you, I'm telling you for a long time. The points of assets and liabilities are mostly repetitive in nature. So you can use the repetitive points. Those, I think first 4 points are totally repetitive in most of the thing that I have mentioned. So you can use that. Okay, like properly fixed assets must be maintained. The proper calculation of depreciation must be ensured by the auditor. The auditor must verify the ownership and existence of fixed asset, and he must conduct physical verification respectively. Those points are repetitive. And for liabilities, you can examine the capital fund of the cinema hall, and you can maintain the records of those fees, payments, and those receipts, that cinema receipts that you have gotten. Yeah, so these points are repetitive in nature. You can follow the same format. Next one is audit of hire purchase and leasing companies. There are two subtopics in this. One for audit of hire purchase companies. Second is for leasing companies. So first we'll deal with hire purchase companies. Okay. So when you are purchasing the asset, the auditor must see that the proper authorization of purchase of asset is there. The cost is properly mentioned, the payment is made, and the entry is also passed in books of accounts, and the ownership, who is maintaining the ownership of the asset, must be also mentioned. Next one, hire purchase agreement. In the hire purchase agreement, the date must be there and properly signed. The terms and condition must be totally fulfilled. The asset, the installment payment criteria must be mentioned in the hire purchase agreement. Next is hire purchase transaction. We know that hire purchase, first will be having the hire purchase price, then we have the cash price. We know that hire purchase price means total plus interest is also included. So we start with the cash price, we have down payment, and then we settle those balance by paying installment along with the interest amount. Right. So the installment principal amount and interest amount should be shown separately. Regular receipt must be accounted. Accounting policy and entry must be properly there followed. Provision for irrecoverable, that must be also made. Next is repossession of goods. When the installment is failed to be paid, the goods will be repossessed. At that point of time, non-payment of installment, that is hire purchases default. In that case only repossession of goods will be happening. So in that time, valuation of goods must be properly done, and if there is any sale, second sale, it must be properly recorded. So these are the points relating to audit of hire purchase companies, that is purchase of asset, hire purchase agreement, hire purchase transaction, repossession of goods. So the next topic is audit of leasing companies. Okay. So first we'll see what is a lease. A lease is a contract between the lessor and the lessee on payment of fixed rentals. Okay. So who is a lessor? Lessor is the legal owner of the asset. And who is lessee? Lessee is the one who acquires right to use the specific asset. Okay. And on agreeing to pay the lease rentals. Okay, that's it. And leasing agreements are of two types, operating lease and financial lease. In operating lease, lessee has the right to use the asset, and in financial lease, risk and returns are transferred to the lessee. Okay, the difference between operating lease and financial lease will be studying in the next slide. Okay. For now, let's understand till here. Next, we are going to audit procedures of leasing companies. Point number 1 is preliminaries. The auditor has to check whether the provisions of the Companies Act and the Reserve Bank of India Act have been complied with. Okay. Whether AS 19 for leasing companies accounting standards is AS 19. So that is complied with or not, the auditor has to check. The auditor has to study memorandum of association and articles of association of leasing companies to know the kinds of asset it can lease out. Okay, so what kind of asset the company can lease out, all these things are being clearly stated in the memorandum and articles of association. So the auditor must have clear knowledge about these things also. And also the auditor has to check board resolution authorizing lease agreements. Okay. And then lease proposals, details like rent amount, tenure, dates of payments, etc. he must be knowing. After that, he must examine the copies of insurance policies taken for the fixed assets assets, invoices of purchase of assets, lease rent properly accounted for or not. All these details the auditor has to properly examine. Okay. And next, the auditor has to ensure whether sale and lease back have been properly identified and disclosed in accounts. Next one is auditor has to examine overdues, if any. If there is any overdue, he has to properly examine them. Next, ascertain the adequacies of provisions for doubtful debts against the lessees. Okay, provision has to be maintained. Last one is examine cases where items given on financial lease have been repossessed. Verify second lease or right of sale of these items. If there is any repossession of fixed assets carried down, and if there is any sale, second hand sale of those repossessed assets, these things have to be verified and examined by the auditor. Okay, so there are 5 points mainly covering the audit procedure. They are preliminary, then purchase of asset details, the leasing agreements details, leasing transaction according to AS 19, and last, if there is any repossession, those things have to be observed and properly examined. These are the audit procedures of leasing companies. Now let's see the difference between operating lease and financial lease. Okay, first basis is ownership. Or in operating lease, the ownership remains with the lessor for the entire period of lease. Okay, the ownership will remain in the hands of lessor. In financial lease, the option is with the lessee. Means he can take the title, ownership title, or may not be eventually transferred. Okay. Accounting treatment. Operating lease is treated like a renting agreement. Just like a normal renting agreement, the operating lease is treated. But financial lease is treated like a loan agreement. Okay. Next is purchase option. The purchase option of the asset by the lessee is not available. Okay. But in financial lease, that option is available with the lessee. Next, lease term. Generally less than 75% of the projected useful life of the leased asset. Generally, it's a short-term period. But financial lease, generally it is more than or equal to estimated economic life of the asset. It is for a longer period of time. Next, operating and running expenses. Who bears this expenses? In operating lease, the lessee pays only the monthly lease payments. No other operating or running expenses are borne by the lessee. The lessor bears everything. But in financial lease, the lessee generally bears insurance, maintenance and tax expenses. Okay. Next point, tax benefits. In operating lease, lease payment is considered as an expense only. It is treated like a renting agreement only. So no depreciation can be claimed by the lessee and hence there will be no tax benefit as such. Okay, but in financial lease, lessee can claim both interest and depreciation expenses as financial lease is treated like a loan agreement. Okay, so tax benefits are available to the lessee in financial lease. And the common examples of operating lease are lease of projector, computers, laptops, coffee dispensers, etc. And for financial lease, lease of plant and machinery, land, office building, etc. So I hope the difference is clear for you. The difference between operating lease and financial lease. The 12th type of audit that we are going to deal with is audit of hotels. So now let's see the audit of receipts or incomes of hotels, divided into three categories: room rents, restaurant income and others. Okay, so let's see the points for room rents. The auditor must collect these things like daily occupancy report, bills to all. The calculation must be perfectly maintained and specifically recorded, and the rates of taxes also must be properly complied with, and the receipts, if it is in foreign exchange, that has to be properly recorded. If it is through cards, the copy of receipt, cash or passbook entry in the books of accounts must be maintained, and if in cash, it must be recorded in the cash book. Okay, these are the points relating to room rents income. And next, restaurant income. The internal control of the restaurant, bills from order book, calculations, and the amount to all customers must be properly maintained and given to the auditor for auditing purposes. Okay, that's all for points for restaurant income. Next, others. If there is any banquet hall, rent from shopkeepers, agreement with travel agents, all these things are common in most of the luxurious hotels. Okay, from 3-star onwards, there are certain other facilities the hotels provide. So these things also the auditor must take into consideration and examine properly whether there are any conference happening there or have happened before, their details, and then rent from shopkeepers. If the hotels are having any shops inside the hotels, their rent also must be properly received by the hotel, and that should be properly accounted for. Agreement with the travel agencies for conducting some tour purpose or something like leisure purposes. Those things must be properly maintained, and the details must be given to the auditor properly. So these are the points relating to audit of receipts or incomes of hotels. Next, we are going to see the audit of payments or expenses of hotels, divided into 5 categories: to staffs, purchases, commission, expansion expenses and taxes. Let's see. Payments to staff, payments to casual laborers, okay, those who are working in the hotels, for them. Then if any purchases, the proper authorization of purchases must be there. The bill that has been received by the purchase of anything by the hotels must be properly maintained. Entry in the cash books and entry in the accounts must be also there. These things the auditor has to verify. Next, paying of commissions. The agreement must be properly made. The rate of commission must be properly prescribed. Confirmation from the travel agents. If you are paying any commission to them, it must be confirmed with the travel agents properly. Accounting in the right period, in the right manner must be undertaken. So these things also auditor must take into consideration. Next point is expansion expenses. If there are any expansion of hotels, those expenses are to be treated as a capital expenses and are to be capitalized. Okay, and the payments for these expenses must be properly accounted and must be entered in the cash book or passbook. And taxes, the GST payments to authorities must be properly recorded and all the details must be given to the auditor in a right manner. So these are the audit of payments or expenses of hotels. Next point is audit of assets of hotels and audit of liabilities of hotels. Fixed assets. The point is the same as we have discussed in the previous slides. The fixed assets must be properly accounted for. The ownership must be properly verified. The depreciation must be properly calculated for each class of fixed asset. Yeah, the same points are to be repeated here also. Next, asset stock. The auditor must check whether valuation methods are consistently applied. The auditor must attend the physical stock taking. The auditor must ensure that stocks are kept under appropriate authority. Okay. Next, the cash and foreign currencies. Usually this happens in almost all the luxurious hotels where international travelers come and they exchange their foreign currencies. So that point of time, the auditor must have a physical check of cash, ensure proper application of conversion rate in case of foreign currencies, and obtain bank reconciliation statement. Okay, so these are the points relating to auditing of assets of hotels. Next we move on to audit of liabilities of hotels. Loans. In case hotel has taken any long-term loan from bank, inspect the loan agreement. The agreement has to be properly inspected by the auditor. Next is check regularity of payment of interest charges. Whether the hotel is paying regular interest payments to the bank with respect to the loan taken from the bank. Other liabilities. The auditor must check whether all liabilities have been taken into account and ensure whether any outstanding expenditure have been there and they are properly shown as liabilities. So these are the points relating to liabilities of hotel. I mean audit of liabilities of hotels. Okay, so let's see the 13th type, that is last type of special audit, that is audit of cooperative society. Okay, now let's see the key points of cooperative society. Cooperative societies are business organization doing special modes of business. Okay, they pull together all means of production. What are the means of production? Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. They pull together all means of production and eliminate middlemen. Okay, they eliminate middlemen and exploitation from outside forces. And the cooperative society is governed by a central act and also governed by specific state acts also. The cooperative society works for the welfare of members. They work together and coordinate together for the welfare of members and society. Okay. So now we are seeing the role of chartered accountants in the development of cooperative society. Only the points are to be read. It is self-explanatory. Account writing, accounting system, internal audit, management accounting service, taxation related services. So in these fields, the chartered accountants are very important in development of cooperative society. Okay, so now let's see the special features of cooperative audit. The auditor must examine the overdue debts, the overdue interest. The certification of bad debts must be obtained by the auditor. The auditor must value the assets and liabilities in a proper manner. The auditor must see whether the cooperative society adheres to the cooperative principles. Okay, the auditor must see and observe whether the cooperative society is run within the purview of the provisions of the act and rules. Verify members register and examine their passbooks. Special report to the registrar must be given. Audit classification of society must be done. Discussion of draft audit report with managing committee must be done by the auditor. These are the few points, special features of cooperative audit. Audit report in respect of different entities. Company audit chapter 10 and audit report chapter 11 gives in detail about the audit report in respect of different entities. As I am only covering the topic audit of different entities or special audit, I am not going to cover the audit report chapter in detail in this presentation. So if you want to get more clarity regarding that topic, you can refer to other lectures. If you want to refer and get clarity over the company audit chapter, you can refer to the link given below in the description box under this video. A presentation by Nitina R. Jacob, a member of study circle of Ernakulam branch of Sikasa. So you can just go through that video for more clarity on the topic company audit.
With that, we come to the end of today's study circle. I hope my presentation was clear, useful and understandable for you all. I hope that you could reap some benefits out of this video. I also hope that I could convey all important points of this chapter for your preparations of your exam. Good luck to you all. Thank you so much.